You don't know how great I am. You don't know how great I am. I am what I am, and I am free. You don't know how great I am.
Yo, check this. I might not be what you want me to be, so you might not see what you want to see. But if you got a minute, listen to what I gotta say, cause it's a brand new year and it's a brand new day. See, there's a gap between my culture and the life that I lead, so some will call me an apple, and some a bad seed. They have no idea how my heart will bleed. Their words and attitudes are things I just don't need.
You don't know how great I am. I am what I am, and I am free.
You see, I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of where I'm from. Those ones spreading racism, they're just fucking dumb. Now if you're looking at my life, and you say I've assimilated, to simplify things, just a little more complicated. See, I'm a modern day native, with a modern day life. I have modern day problems, and modern day strife. Now I hear other natives, they talk about the past, and will I do the same? Fuck that. See, I've got no time to dwell on what's already done. I've got too many things that I want to do. And they don't include knives, and they don't include guns. I'm talking about knowledge and sharing it too. See, my people need to learn how to cohabitate, get rid of the anger, and get rid of the hate. We gotta stop for a minute and learn to educate. And you'll see in the end, we all have to communicate. I know there'll be a time to make a stand and a time to fight, but if you do that, make sure the cause is right. Because if the cause is right and the cause is just, greater numbers of people will be backing you up. History has repeatedly shown to us all that united we stand and divided we fall. They were talking about natives and natives alone, because this is a big world and this world is our home. Now I've seen some beautiful people and ugly ones too, and there's no single color that comes into view. So the message I'm sending, it's not all that long. It's just, I want the human race to be stronger than strong. I said I just want the human race to be stronger than strong.
You all have to be strong.
Done it. Word.
We all have to be strong. Peace.
This is a message for the youth.
Yeah, that's right. You know what I'm saying? This is a message out to you. Because we hearing what y'all listen to. And if y'all do what you do, because you do what you hear, and this is for you. So perk up your ear.
That's right, perk them up. Because this is straight out to you, the youth.
Yeah, to the youth. This is straight up knowledge. The kind of shit you won't get in no college.
To the youth.
To the youth.
Now, you can check out this native MC, trusted and true. This is native hip hop with a new attitude. Y'all might have noticed I'm a little bit older, but my attitude is a whole lot bolder. I keep my eyes over my shoulder for the younger MCs around that corner. Now y'all think you're gonna replace me? Ha! Come on up here and face me. And if you think that I am crazy, you haven't seen the half of me. So go ahead and try to stress me. But if you just talk about the way my woman dresses me, then you haven't got a clue on how to mess with me. That's why your shaky ass rhymes ain't impressing me.
Yeah. That's right. So I hope y'all youth are still listening. My homeboy, he's still whistling.
No, I'm tired of young MCs talking about chicken shacks. When in your rhymes, it's truth that you lack. I don't need to talk about the women who rub my skin, trying to get inside my pig pen. But if those be the girls that you like, you're gonna end up getting your blood spiked. So you better stop before you show your love. You better double up on your Pinot glove. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Because when it's raining outside, you take an umbrella. So before you pump her, you better wrap your thumper.
That's right. Straight up common sense. That's what I'm talking about. But for those of you who want to talk about violence, I know you just want to break up the silence. I can talk about my AK-47. I can put a bullet in your head and send you to heaven. But if that's the way I start to yell, then my body's going straight to hell. Besides, I don't want to be like Michael Harris, pretending I'm oh so fearless. As long as the trigger's in someone else's hand, is he really what you want to call a man?
I don't think so.
Not a chance.
A man. Michael Harris? No, that's a capital J-O-K-E joke.
Now you want to talk about smoking an 8-ball. I'm going to tell you about a man who had a great fall. He spent all night snorting up some snotty. Then he looked to the sky and said, "Beam me up, Scotty." He got so high up inside his head, couldn't even make it to his bed. So when his heart failed and he had died, who do you think sat down and cried? Hot damn, not a goddamn soul. Druggies took his dope and dropped him in a hole.
Now that is stone cold.
That's right, concrete cold. When you think it's impressive to swing back a 2-4 or a 60-pounder. After that, brother, you're just gonna fuck like a grounder. I know, cause I've been down with drugs, I've been down with booze. And if you go that way, you do nothing but lose. I ain't trying to be no preacher, but I am learning how to be a teacher. So I'll teach you things to make you wise. I'll tell you things to open your eyes. I don't need to tell you any lies, cause there's enough of that shit under our skies. See, my message comes from a different recipe. It starts with the teachings the elders taught to me. They said, look at all the people from sea to sea. But beware, brother, cause some will disagree. That peace has got to involve all the nations. That life is where we start communications. They don't understand every radio has many stations. Just like our planet has many creations.
Yeah, that's right. I'm saying this is a message up to you. Cause we hearing what y'all listen to. And if y'all do what you do, cause you do what you hear. And this is for you. So perk up your ears.
That's right, perk them up. This is straight up to you, the you.
Yeah, to the you. This is straight up knowledge. The kind of shit you won't get in no college.
To the you.
To the you.
Cause I'm telling you like it is. But now you want to try and change my flow.
You want to try and change the flow.
You want to try and change my flow.
You want to try and change the flow.
You want to try and change my flow.
Well, here's something that you better know.
Everything that I write,
It's got to do with every man's fight.
it's got to do with every man's plight.
It's got to do with breaking that stereotype.
And if peace is not your hype, I'll have to lyrically crush your type.
Break you down. Break you down.
This is a message for the youth, because we hear what you listen to.
Done it.
Word.
Sigurli swagwag galahindi neogat wagisli wagi niwak doloda oni da gungwa winage ani bojo dansai okinapi how yonko yuko donlos. For those of you who are joining for the first time or just don't know what I said, I always introduce myself in the original language. So I said Sigurli swagwag or hello everyone. Galahindi Neogets. So Galahindi is my name, and it translates to clouds passing over in the colonial language. And I'm a member of the people of the Standing Stone First Nations, and I am Bear Clan. I am streaming from the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Delaware, and Huron nations. And I'm on the land that is known as the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Treaty Territory. In the colonial sense, that means I am in southwestern Ontario, in the part of Turtle Island that people call Canada. And I said, Yonko, Yukodola, or thank you, friends, for joining. And I hope that you enjoyed today's stream. It's not going to be a long one. I will kind of go over a little bit of what we're going to do today. So, September 30th, just for most of you who may not have been in the last couple of streams, September 30th is what we call the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. So it's a day that we use to acknowledge the history of residential schools and the trauma, that's intergenerational trauma that's been created by them. And um, and it's a day to raise awareness about it so that people who don't know the history have an opportunity to have open discussions about it and learn about that history. So, as part of the intergenerational trauma that it's created, there is still much um, to heal from. And we are now what we call the seventh generation. So, this generation that we are currently in, or this time that we're currently in, is the generation that's meant for a change. And so, as such, we have to spin things around and start to heal from the past and look for a better future for our people. And part of that future means healing from that trauma and figuring out ways of doing that through our traditions, reclaiming our language and ceremony, and bringing those all back to today's practice. Now, one of the things because of that trauma is that it's not going to be an easy task or an easy road. So there are organizations that have kind of put themselves together to help assist indigenous peoples in reclaiming that culture and those teachings and the history and um, starting that journey to healing. And one of those organizations is what we call the Indian Residential School Survivor Society. So this month, for the month of September, we're going to be trying to raise funds for the resident for IRSSS. And so when you're in my stream, under where you would normally see the sub button, you'll probably see a donate button, and that should be a donation to the charity called. And it's not really a charity, but for the sake of keeping things simple for Twitch, um, we are fundraising for the Indian Residential Survivors School Society. Also, I would suggest keeping an eye this month out for events that are going to be hosted and hopefully I've registered for, and we'll be able to share some of the events that are going to be uh, done virtually through the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation, which was a organization put together to help make recommendations to the government on what actions should be taken to help um, reconcile the relationships between the colonial government and the indigenous peoples of this country. And they came up with 93 calls to action. And that was presented to the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau back in 2015. So far, I believe we're at about 10 of those actions haven't been completed. So we've got a long ways to go, and some of that means that we may have to push on this current government to pick up the pace. And so we'll at some point get into more of that as the month goes on. So what we're going to do today is, first of all, I want to explain what the survivor's flag is. So as many of you may see, I have a profile picture, which is a little kind of an orange circle, and with a number of um, aspects to the image, and that that profile picture essentially is what we call the survivor's flag. Um, So I'll go over the parts of that flag so that you understand. Um, this was a flag that took a lot of consultation with various indigenous leaders and survivors to come up with this design. And so I'll break that down and kind of give you some context as to what that logo means, so that you understand um, when you see it. We'll have I'll share a quick talk from Tom Jackson, who did a discussion on Canada as a family. It's only about, I think, 10 minutes long, if it's that long, as well as a talk by radio host Rosanna Deerchild, who's discussing the reclaiming her narrative. And then we'll wrap up the stream with a short documentary that was done by Mohawk filmmaker Layla Black. And Layla Black, for those who don't know, is from the Six Nations of Grand River. She's an activist and a water protector and land protector. She was at 1492 Landback Lane to help reclaim some of the land that the uh, Six Nations of Grand River actually should be uh, provided, either given back to the Six Nations of Grand River, because it is land that was given to them through treaty. And she also went out to Wet'suwet'en to help with the water defenders out there to prevent the GasLink pipeline from being built. That battle is still ongoing. And then her family also has had to deal with for residential school system as well. And so this film basically is her story of how her family connected with the water to help uh, re, to heal and start their journey as a family, and getting back to grassroots healing. And you'll see how that goes during the documentary. So I guess the first things first is, let me get my face off the screen here. I'm going to show you this. This is what you'll see is very similar to the the logo that you see on my profile, over on the far right, or far left, I should say, where it says dark native. You see that little circle with the orange um, icon there. And that icon, of course, you'll see is essentially it's the same one, except mine has some coloring to it. So this is called the survivor's flag. And so I'll go through each of these little sections here. So the first section is the survivor's flag. First of all, is just meant as a way of an expression of remembrance of the and meant to honor the residential school survivors and all the lives and communities impacted by the residential school system here. And each element depicted on the flag, again, as I was saying earlier, was had consultation and input from Indigenous leaders as well as survivors from residential schools, who all had a little bit of an input into the creation of this flag. So the first part of it is where we talk about the very basis of our systems, is always comes down to family. So what you see in this part of the flag are two parents and their two children. So some saw the adults as our ancestors watching over us, and others saw this as parents signifying whole families that were ripped apart and also reuniting to represent the healing. So it has a before and after aspect to this. So that's the two parents and then the children. The next part of the flag is the children, because children, um, well, first of all, there's more than one child, you can see, obviously, but that was to signify siblings, because when the children were taken from their communities and schools, not only were they taken from the families, but they're also separated from each other. And oftentimes that became even that much more traumatizing because you're taken from your family, your community, and you're separated from the only people that you probably felt comfortable around. And then, of course, not being able to speak your language, not being able to practice your ceremony, or and have your hair cut. So, a number of different things that happened to the children when they went into these schools that just added to that trauma that they had to deal with. The next thing you'll see are the seeds below the ground. So they represent uh, the spirits of the children who never actually came home. So the children who did not survive the residential schools. And though they've always been present, they are now seen and are being searched for. As we noted in the May of 2021, when Kamloops Indian School was the property was searched, and 215 unmarked burial sites were found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School in Kamloops, British Columbia. So this is the children who were buried and are now being searched for. The next part of it is um, the Tree of Peace. The Tree of Peace is a Haudenosaunee thing, and essentially it's a symbol of how nations were united and brought to peace, and which in turn provides protection, comfort, and renewal. So the story of the Tree of Peace is it's a pine tree, it's a white pine tree, and as the nations gathered, particularly the Haudenosaunee nations, what they had agreed to do is they dug a big hole in the ground. They all threw their weapons into this hole. They buried the weapons and built and planted a tree above it, a white pine tree, which then became that symbol of peace and where all weapons end, and relations and camaraderie were to begin, and collaborative agreements to help all the nations cohabitate within the same area in a peaceful manner. And as the Six Nations, it was originally five nations, but what became the Six Nations was that each nation would take on its own responsibility within the community. So there was a nation that was responsible for building, one that was for farming, one for hunting, etc. So they all had their own responsibilities in that community. So then the next thing is the cedar branch. Now, it's a sacred medicine that represents protection and healing, and but also what is used by some indigenous cultures when one enters the physical world, and then again when they pass on to the next world. So the seven branches acknowledges the seven sacred teachings taught by indigenous cultures. And if you have not learned about the seven sacred teachings, which we also can be called the seven grandfather teachings, there are seven principles that we should all live by. And so those are humility, bravery, honesty, wisdom, truth, respect, and love. So those are the things that we should each live by. And if you click that link, it'll give you more information about it. Hey, Dory. Nice to see you. It's Gully, Swagwag, and Yanko for being here. So we're really just kind of at the beginning of this. We're just kind of going over right now what we call the survivor's flag, which is what you'll see under by my name, that orange circle that is based on the survivor's flag, which I will show back here. This is what the survivor's flag actually looks like, and we're just going over what each of these little sections represent. So We're just finished with the cedar branch. The next one is what we call cosmic symbolism. This represents the moon, the sun, stars, and planets. And the sun represents the divine protection that ensures those who survived came home. And the North Star is prominent that it is the important navigation guide for many indigenous cultures. And so that's this obviously the circle that's in there. You see the little stars within that circle. The next one is as most people are aware, there are essentially three groups, primary groups of original peoples here on Turtle Island, and one of them is what we call the Métis. So that's represented here by the Métis sash. Oh, Don, Dirk, you go for resubbing 3 months now. Thank you for your ongoing support. I appreciate that. So the Métis sash is a prominent ceremonial regalia that's worn with pride. It contains certain colors. Colors, of course, are symbolic to all of the original peoples here. But so the certain colors that represent lives that were lost, while others represent signal connectedness as humans and resilience through trauma. And all the threads woven together spell out part of our history. And no single thread defines the whole history. So this is going to be all the little broken down pieces in here that you'll see are representative of the threads of the Métis sash. And then the next little section here is going to be the feather. Now the eagle feather is represents that of the Creator's Spirit is among us. It is depicting pointing upwards, which mirrors how it is held when one speaks their truth. So anytime that you'll see elders who are talking, putting on ceremony or conducting or just even telling their stories, and they're holding an eagle feather, the eagle feather is that it's kind of like, I suppose, like what the Christians would use the Bible for. When you're holding it, you can only speak truth. You can only speak from your heart and things that are honest. Um, because you contaminate the properties of the eagle feather if you do otherwise. And then the last part of it is what we call the Inuksut. The Inuksut is used by the Inuit as navigational guides. So it links to tradition. When they put these up, they put them up in ways that help them learn and remember where, say, certain hunting grounds are. Um, Particularly when everything is covered with snow, it's a lot harder to navigate things because everything is just you know looks so similar that it's hard to kind of uh, you know direct yourself without some sort of guide or um, symbols or something like that that goes along the way. And of course, then the anuxits are things that won't be eaten by animals, so that they're not going to disappear on you before you use them again. So that again is the survivor's flag, and that's what it looks like here. And of course, that is what my profile icon is based on. So you'll see that it's essentially the same symbol, except that mine's got some coloring that in it that isn't in the flag itself. 'Cause the flag is just meant to be symbolic of all of the aspects in an equal way. So I hope that helps everyone understand what the flag was about. So, getting to the next part. Now, for those of you who just joined, what I said, it's not going to be a long stream today. We're just going to go over a couple of short things. I have a short talk from singer and speaker Tom Jackson, who's going to talk about Canada as family. Then I have it's about 7, 8 minutes, and then I have a short talk from Rosanna Deerchild, who's a radio host, um, who's going to talk about reclaiming her narrative, because there was a picture of her put on a front of a magazine cover. In fact, I'll kind of just show this over here. So this is Roseanne um, here on this cover, and she did not know she was going to be on the cover. And in fact, this kind of was a bit of a surprise for her. And then the story that was here, they call me a stupid squaw or tell me go back to the res. That was a quote that she did not expect to be to see on the cover of the magazine either. So she's done a short 10-minute little talk here on her response to that magazine and reclaiming it. So I'm going to share those two little clips, and then once that's done, we have a short documentary that was done by Mohawk filmmaker Layla Black, who is from Six Nations of Grand River, and it's about 24 minutes long, if I remember, and it's really shot beautifully. You're gonna really like the cinematography that she caught in this documentary is really beautiful, and so the documentary was basically um, kind of tells the story of how her family heals from the effects of residential school by reconnecting with water, and because water is life, and water is something that connects us all together. The animal world, the plant world, the human world, we all need water to survive and to carry on. And this is part of the story that you'll hear when she explains her teachings. So, what I'll start first of all with is I'll start with the Tom Jackson um, clip, and then we'll go to the one from Rosanna, and then we'll kind of go from there. So let me get this started for you.
Tanse, Anine, and hello. I'm Rosanna Deerchild, your favorite cousin.
I guess I got that backwards.
And I'm here to take the land back. Just kidding. Not enough Cree in the room yet. So I'm the Cree from the Yopipanapiuan Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. That's in Treaty 5 territory. But I've called Winnipeg home for just over 20 years. The last 5 in my favorite found home of the North End, in the heart of Winnipeg, the heart of the continent, Manitoba, Manitowopo, where the Creator sits. I want to acknowledge, of course, Treaty 1 territory and the Métis homeland and all my relatives and my relations here in the room. And this place is really special to me, this place we call Winnipeg. My poetic voice was found here. My media journey began here. I found family here. I created family here. I became so much in this space. I'm a poet, a broadcaster. I'm a mother, and I am a witness. But this is not the story I'm sharing with you today. In this story, I am a cover girl. In February of 2014, I was on the cover of a magazine. No, not the cover of the Rolling Stone, because that would be awesome. No, I was on the cover of a national news magazine. There beside a headline that screamed, "Race problem ugliest in Winnipeg. Special report." There, stoic and angry, a dramatic head and shoulders shot on a black background. There beside my unsmiling and stoic face, in 36-point white font, they call me a stupid squaw. You may have seen it. When I first saw it, I was pretty stunned. I think my reaction went something like, "Oh, Beep! Perhaps a little dramatic. Who doesn't want to be on a magazine cover? Well, me. I work in radio, people. And certainly not like this. It was a bit of a shock because no one told me I was going to be on the cover. I saw it on Twitter, and that's how I found out. And yes, I know, I agreed to the article, to the interview, and I agreed to be photographed. As a member of the media, I certainly know that the most productive, the most provocative images and words sell the most magazines. But I was just one small story of many in the article, 2 lines to be exact. I thought, there are more important stories to be told. Tina Fontaine, Michael Champagne, the Bannock Lady, the continuing challenges that our people face every single day. But there I was, racism's cover girl. Okay, I thought, don't panic. Who reads magazines anyways, except those people who sit in doctor's offices and have to go to the bathroom a lot? Maybe it won't be so bad. Well, within hours, it was all over my social media. People were liking it and sharing it and thumbs-upping all over the place. And, hey, girl, way to go. The media was gathering a reaction from everyone and anyone. My inbox slowly filled with interview requests. Okay, that's not too bad. I can deal with that. And the next day, the mayor of Winnipeg held a press conference. Invited everyone. Well, except me. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Indigenous leaders, with community, with allies, and said, we are going to confront this ugly racism. We're going to deal with it. I mean, the mayor cried, guys. He cried. It was a big deal. And the debate burned on, from local radio to national news, online, offline, in line, at coffee shops, and around tables and in pubs, every day for weeks. My own mother was like, you're on the news again, and would change the channel. Thanks, Mom. And I just wanted to withdraw. I refused all media requests. I didn't engage in social media. I didn't explain, argue, deny, or confirm what that bold title labeled me as. I was happy to let it be, to let it run out as all things do in media. And it's not that I disagreed or disliked the article or its contents, per se. Yes, there is racism in Winnipeg. Shocking. And yes, I still get called that name. But the place described in those pages was not what I knew as home. And the face on that cover was not someone I recognized. This was not my story. I have 2 girls. They are 10 and almost 12. And they are my sun and my moon. My girls know who they are. I take them to powwows, protests, round dances, and rallies. They know the story imprinted on their bones, the story that's written on their skins. And at the time, my younger was 8. She goes to a large multicultural school and has a lot of friends. She loves art and music, and she really is proud of her culture, her Anishinaabe and Cree culture. About a week after the article hit, my little girl came home from school, and she was very quiet, and that's not normal for her. So I said, baby, what's wrong? And she said, Mama, today at school, the kids are talking about that article. They said you're wrong. She said, a boy called me a dirty Indian today. She said, that's why we're brown, because we're dirty. And there it was, that punch in the gut, that loss of breath, that loss of words that you expect but never are prepared for. As much as I tried to avoid this story, there it was sitting across from me at my supper table. There it was. It had become her story. So I had a choice. I could continue to say that this is not my story and ignore it and hope it goes away. Or I could change the conversation. I had to recognize my power, in fact, my responsibility as a storyteller, as a member of this community, as a mother, and as a witness, to stand in this space and to tell the story. And because I am not your squaw, I took back my narrative. I have this awesome job as a host of a radio show. You might have heard it, CBC's Unreserved. And I have an amazing supportive team who allowed me to use that radio space for my own personal use. Using my own words and based in my own experience, I was able to offer reaction to the piece. I was able to share a little bit of my story. I allowed one camera to tape it and for them to use in their news, and that's all the media did on the cover. Because the conversation had become so much bigger, and because not everyone has a radio show, Rosanna, I also made space so the community could share their narrative. With the help of some amazing women, we created the Race to Peace Project. Those were a series of public dinner and discussions about race relations right here in our city. Everyday people facing everyday people in an open and honest conversation, much like the Walrus does. We came together to talk, to listen, and to learn. And we learned that, yes, Winnipeg is a divided place. Divided by her train tracks that stitch together north and south, by rivers that bring us together and drift us apart. There is a social divide, a race divide, and for some, a denial divide that threatens to drown us if we cannot stand together, hold together, and bridge that divide. But so too does this heart beat strong and open. We are more than just poverty porn and sad statistics. Winnipeg has been the place of trade and treaty making. It is a boom and bust place. It had rebellion and round dance revolutions. In my culture, we look to the circle for much of our teachings. It teaches us unity, strength. There is always room in the circle. It is where no one leads and everyone leads. We are all equal in the circle, and it can only be made stronger the more people you add. And so I invite you in. Come on in, and let's share in all of our stories. Agose.
My name is Tom Jackson. My father was English, Canadian. My mother was Cree, Indian. So that makes me Canadian. Now, if you've been to my lodge before, you'll know this, but if this is your first time, this will be news to you. And if you have to go to the washroom, squeeze your knees. And if you're texting, stop for 3 seconds, because this is the most important thing I'm going to say. I love you. And if you'd like to see a better Canada, say I. Okay, some of you do. If you'd like to see a better Canada, say I. If you'd like to see a better Canada, say love. You like freedom? Freedom. Like, I've been from one end of the country to the other, and I've made that journey across the top, and And I can tell you that there's a lot of things you can do in this country that don't cost you nothing. One of them is love, arguably. Now, if this was, I saw the map behind us, and if the stage was this map, and I wanted to be in Toronto, well, I'd have to be kind of over here. Because if I'm over here, I'm in Manitoba. Right? So I want to be here just for a second, and I want to tell you, if you went on a journey with me, let me just share some experiences with you, right? I went to Inuvik once, which, if this was the map, I'd be kind of over here. And I actually went golfing, an 18-hole golf course on the Beaufort. If you got people that you know up there, they'll carve out a golf course for you on the Beaufort. And then if you go up to Old Crow, which is the farthest northern tip on the mainland continent, about 100 miles into the Arctic Circle, you can have the best caribou stew on the planet. And if you wander your way down, you can go to Pelly Crossing or Mayo or go to Dawson City and see the casino that still exists there. And you can go down to Whitehorse, and they can show you some of the best fly fishing in the world. And you can go over here into northern BC, and you can go to Atlin, where the best little big music festival happens every year. And if you know the elders, they'll take you to a camp which is 50 kilometers into the bush, and you can sit, and if you're silent, you can hear the salmon speak. And then you can go to Kispiox, the hiding place, and you can dance with an elder, and the more you dance with her, the younger she gets. Or Hazelton, and you can go there and see 6 longhouses. We got to hurry. You got to get over here because you're going to go to Newfoundland and Labrador, and you're going to go to a place where the Viking Queen landed 600 years before Columbus. And then you're going to maybe go to St. John's. If you're really lucky, you're going to meet Aidan and Sarah Flynn, and Sarah's going to help you with your bobber. What's a bobber? Well, they don't fly fish over there. They put bobbers on the end of their line, and they throw it out there, and then you got to sit and watch your bobber. And then you go maybe to Quebec, and you see the tall ships and the marionettes. You know, the giant ants. You go there and go up to Cambridge. And Cambridge, oh, yeah. No, we got to go to Rankin first. We got to go to Rankin. You know, because Susan Gulkark was born in Rankin. And speaking of Rankin, and we got to go back over here, go to Cape Breton. You got to go to Mabou, where everybody in Mabou plays and sings music. Why? Because they're from the Rankin family. And you go up here, and you go to Cambridge, and if you listen at night, guided only by the northern lights, if you listen, you can hear the electricity going through the lines, but that's the only thing you can hear. Unless you go out onto the sea. It gets quiet and quiet. And all of a sudden you'll hear a buzz. Bzzz. What is that? It's a skidoo. And then there's 2 and 3 and 4 and 15 skidoos, and on the back of them are hockey players. Now this is hockey night in Canada. They're traveling hundreds, maybe thousands of miles to be guaranteed at least a 3rd place medal in Yellowknife, because there's only 3 teams playing in the hockey tournament. And then they'll trade their sleds, those sleds, for other sleds that are pulled by dogs. It's awesome. Maybe you go down into Manitoba, go down into Boissevain, and you'll see the only turtle derby. And if you're lucky, you'll get Rick Neufeld to sing Moody Manitoba Morning. Go over into Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, you'll see amazing teepee circles. And if you walk on the land, it sounds in the summer like it does in the winter, because some of the land is so dry that it sounds like fresh snow. And if you take your shoes and your socks off and you stand in those circles like me and my wife, Allison, actually I'm her husband, and you stand there, it'll make you cry. It's so awesome, just unbelievable. And maybe you step over into Alberta and you go into the Badlands and you meet the guy who runs the Badlands. He actually runs the Badlands. But you got to know him because otherwise you can't go where you want to go. But you go and stand on land that is you may be the only person ever stood on this land. 350 million years old. And I asked him, why do you do this? He's going to do this for the rest of his life. Why do you do this? And he looks at me like I'm nuts. He says, can't you feel it? And I did. And then I thought to myself, okay, I got it. Allison, would you pass me that? Then I thought, I got to get back to Toronto. I'm looking for the maple leaf. And I thought, just think about that for a second. I mean, we live in a land that has so many different things, and one of the most treasured things that we know is the maple leaf. We are so different. We have 1,000 cultures in this country, and we are fiercely independent with our cultures unless there's a disaster. I work with the Red Cross, and I can tell you when there's something wrong in this country, there's nothing that I would rather do than be with you. Because we are a family. And when something goes wrong in a family, the family becomes one. You see, this maple leaf, you got great trees here, right? I've seen them. But this maple leaf is my sister. And I'm going to ask you just for 5 seconds to believe, if you will. Just 5 seconds. Just breathe. And believe that I'm your brother. 1, 2. Okay, now, regardless of how you looked at that flag before, or that maple leaf, now that you know that's my sister, and I'm your brother, how does that make you feel now?
Sigoli Swagag. So, I think that was pretty inspirational talk, again by Tom Jackson. And Tom Jackson is a singer as well as an actor. You may have seen him, and I believe it was North of 60, if I remember. It was a series that he was in for a number of years. But yeah, so that was, uh, I think that was a good talk because we have to kind of put things, I think, into a more positive perspective in order to help build our relations again with each other because our teachings have always been that we are interconnected. Uh, we are all related, and when they say when elders say all my relations, they're talking about not only us as all as humans, but as well as us being related to the land creatures and the air creatures and the water creatures, in the water itself, in the plant world. So we are all connected. If you take any one of those aspects away from Mother Earth, then everything get goes out of balance, and all the other ones suffer. So if we treat everything with respect and and create a sustainable way of using the resources and only taking what we need, then everything can certainly be more. We have, there's no reason we can't all cohabitate in the same space. So the uh, the next thing I'm going to share, again, it's a documentary. It was done by a Mohawk filmmaker named Layla Black, and I don't know how many of you were around last summer, but Layla Black came on a stream last summer talking about activism. Um, Black, as well as her brother Logan Stats, who also I play his music on my stream during our music nights. uh, Logan and Layla and her partner Skylar Williams were all part of the movement at 1492 Landback Lane, which was part of the uh, Six Nations of Grand River trying to reclaim land back that they were already promised by the colonial government. And in the midst of that, they also went out to the west coast to help the Wet'suwet'en battle the uh, corporation that's trying to run a uh, pipeline through one of the last clean um, water sources in British Columbia. And so that battle is still going on. And so they're getting closer and closer to running that pipeline under the water, which is, as with any pipeline, it's not a matter of if it will break, but when it will break and how will it be dealt with when that happens. And so, to avoid the situation, the Wet'suwet'en people are declining any permission or granting any permission for this GL pipeline to run through their property. So the Haudenosaunee people were in the ones all part of the 1492 Landback Lane, all went out there to help with the Wet'suwet'en awareness as well. So we'll get updates on that at some point. That's kind of a whole different stream. But the film that she did, it's about 25 minutes long, 24 minutes long. It's called Blood and Water, and it's a documentary discussing her family's way of reconnecting with the water and using their connection back to the earth as a way of starting their healing journey from residential schools. And again, that's what we're focused on for the month of September. Really, is the history of residential schools and the journey to find out how we can all kind of heal from that history. Because Indigenous people are still there's a lot of them of us who are still angry. There's a lot of us that still have a lot of healing to do. And one of the organizations that are helping us along with that is the Indian Residential School Survivor Society, which is what we've. Uh, you'll see a link that on my page that says donate to charity. It's not actually a charity per se, but it is for simplicity's sake. We'll just you know go with the way that Twitch has set this up. But it's to help with this organization that creates sharing circles. They do healing ceremonies, and they help with not only the families, the survivors, but the families of the survivors, as well as the families of those who did not survive, because they also have some healing to do, because they've lost a big part of, there's usually a big hole in their family where there were children at one point, and that has to be dealt with at some point. It's like for mental health reasons. The psychological trauma that was a result of that, a residual result of that has to be dealt with. So the IRSSS is a great organization that is really um, doing a great deal of positive work with Indigenous peoples to help them on their healing journey. So Layla Black and her family found a way of healing through reconnecting to Mother Earth, and that's what this documentary is about. And the cinematography is beautiful. You're gonna really love the cinematography. But so before I get that started, what I'll do is I'll play a quick song here. Just this way, it'll give you a moment to either grab a drink, grab a snack, grab both if you if you need, so that you can sit down and just watch us and without having to get back up in the middle of it. So let me get a song started, and we'll play one song, and then we'll go right into the documentary after that. So I'm going to uh, get my mug off the screen. So the other thing I'm also keep an eye on. I know that I've registered for the National Center of Truth Reconciliation. Is doing some events coming up later in September. I think around the what we call the Week of Truth and Reconciliation, which will be September 25th to the 30th, because a national day, the National Truth and Reconciliation Day is actually September 30th. So that week, there's going to be some events going on that lead up to that, and I'm going to try to share as much of that as I can when those happen. Last year, they actually put on a concert um, with interspersed with some talks and storytelling that I'd like to share as well. And that I will see when I'm going to share that. I don't know. Tomorrow will probably be our music day, so we'll just share our music per se. The one that I normally do on Tuesdays, because I have to work tonight, we're going to push that back a day. But so let me get my mug off the screen again, and I'll play this a rendition of the Peaceful Warrior. This one I'm going to play is going to be by Familiar Fry, who's actually from Iceland. I think he did a kind of an 80s vibe to this, which I thought was really kind of cool rendition. And he did this on the fly, so he didn't practice it. This was kind of I sent him the lyrics, he pulled them up on his computer, and he just put this together. And so really well done, considering he didn't even see the lyrics before he started this. So this is Familiar Fire, and again, right when this is done, we'll go right into the documentary.
My name is Fry, and I'm at war for peace. All senseless attacks I see, I must cease. So what am I doing here, and what do I really want to say? Is that this world has got to change its way. See, I'm going to fight for the red, white, yellow, and black. Gonna fight for the ones who can't fight back. And I'm talking about all the creatures, from the water to the sky. I'm talking about all the issues, from the truth to the lies. And I'm gonna make my stand with the paper and a pen. You wanna argue that, go back to bed again. Cause you're never gonna win against what I stand for. So sit down, shut up and listen as I give my grand tour. I'm gonna tackle the corruption in our government. I'm gonna tackle the poison in our environment. I'm gonna tackle the injustice for the people. I'm gonna hit every target or I won't keep still. And I'm gonna battle the battle of battles. I'll shake up the cage until it rattles. Cause you're never gonna get rid of me. Not until the problems of the world are cut at the knee. Know what I'm saying? Let me kick this out one more time, so crystal clear is the message in rhyme. senseless attacks I see must cease. I'm gonna fight for the red, white, yellow, and black. I'm gonna fight for the ones who can't fight back. So let's keep passing around our information so we can improve this planet through education. Somebody has gotta make the people aware. Someone's gotta make everybody care. So pass my message if you dare. And whether it's mine or yours, we all got to share. 'Cause there's more power in one man's voice than all the weapons of military choice. Of military choice. So with my voice and your voice, we can shout out loud that we belong to the human race and that we are proud. You don't have to be a master of science to see that we need to create a worldwide alliance in order to approach the corporations that's taxing people for their insubordination. When they bring what's happening to our waters and the disease spreading through our slaughters. So what about the government officials that stand behind them with their backdoor handshakes and verbal deals that bind them? We have seen how the world can be devastated through the actions of men with minds of hatred. Look at Hitler, Charlie Manson, and even Osama. These are the men who caused us trauma. These are the men who caused us trauma. Then we have the cops with hookers in the basement, in the backseat. We have punk-ass teens knifing each other in the street. We have drug dealers hooking up kids with crack. There's a lot of shit in this world. It's just whack. We have people who stand up for the rights and get shot down. Well, you better batten down the hatches, 'cause we're heading into the next round. There's no getting through a war without losses. Lenin, King, and Gandhi are all on symbolic crosses. Speakers of the past are gonna inspire speakers of the future. And we're gonna try to heal this world with a metaphorical suture. My name is Fry and I'm at war for peace. All senseless attacks I see must cease. But I won't be able to move this world alone. So just remember, this is also your home. So if I put my voice with your voice and we shout together, why people gonna hear us and things are gonna get better. And things are gonna get better.
Ahodan Gariwadegwa, the words before all else. I was told by people in the filmmaking industry that I shouldn't start the documentary with the Thanksgiving address. It can take up to 20 minutes to thank all elements of creation. And it's all in Mohawk, so you can't understand any of it. Most people don't speak Mohawk. I was told you'll lose them. They won't watch it. And for me, that was exactly why we had to start this film with the Ahoda Gariwadegwa. I remember the first time I heard the Thanksgiving address, I had no idea what they were saying. I was at a conference sitting there, an elder walked to the front of the room and started speaking. And even though I couldn't understand it, I knew it was significant. I knew it was important. I felt it in my bones, in my blood. But when I looked around, I saw people on their phones, checking out, getting bored and impatient. And it became very clear to me that this is part of the problem in our society. We're in this microwave society where we want everything now. We want it so bad that we can't even take the time to acknowledge the gratitude and the thankfulness for the things that we have that keep us alive. So as you listen to the Ahoda Gariwadegwa, I really want you to, even though you don't understand what they're saying, I really want you to connect with the feeling of gratitude and giving that thanks for all of these things and listening with a good mind.
Daye tina warado na ungwai sua. Ito gari na yo tuhage na ngwa ni guna. Daye tina warado na eti nistaha johwanjade. Ito gari na yo tuhage na ngwa ni guna. Daye tina warado na gahniga sua. Ito gari na yo tuhage na ngwa ni guna. Daye tina warado na gunjo sua. Da eto na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina wanado na yotunduni. Da eto na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado na ono kwa suma. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado na asa ni gunda de kohogua. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado ne wahyaniota. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado ne gundirio. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado ne garunda sua. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado ne zita ogua. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado na gayeri ni gawarage. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado na eti sotogo radiweras. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da tsidawa no warado na tsidawa zia anje kene garakwa. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado na eti sota asta neka garakwa. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado na yodzi stoh kwadonyo. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da etina warado na diunkiadado. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da tsidawa no warado na sungwaya dizu. Da eto gari na yotoge na ngwa ni gura. Da eto.
Sego Skanagoa. Layla Black Youngyats, Anuwari, Niwagi, Daroden, Ganyakehaga, Niwago, Wandroden, Oswego, Nidawageno. Hello, my name is Layla Black. I'm Mohawk Turtle Clan from Six Nations. Mohawk Turtle Clan. But I never really knew what that meant. My Riga'o and Kega'o are generational survivors of the residential school. It was only recently when we made this decision to reclaim our Haudenosaunee identity, our language, our culture, that we started to become aware of just how impacted we had been from this ongoing trauma of residential schools. And as we begin to understand what we didn't know, it also became apparent that some things we didn't need to learn. We didn't have to be taught these things because they were in our blood all along. And one of those lessons was our connection to the water. It's literally in our blood. And one of the first things that I learned along this journey was the importance of the Thanksgiving address, the Ahodan Gariwadegwa, the words before all else. No ceremony, no gathering, nothing of significance would begin without these words. Uniting our minds, all as one, to give thanks. And the waters are just one of the elements recognized in this address. Onega Shon'a, the waters. We give thanks to the waters of the world for quenching our thirst and providing us strength. Water is life. We know its power in many forms. Waterfalls, rain, mist, streams, rivers, and oceans. Water connects us. Without it, we die. With one mind, we give thanks to the spirit of the water. Now, our minds are one. As I share my Papa's story with you, I want you to think about your own connection to water. Feel it flow within you. Feel it pulse in your veins, in your blood. So let's go back to where my relationship with water first started. Gord Stotts, the son of Ernest and Susan Stotts, the grandson of Christine Stotts. My middle name is Christine, after her. Christine was a student at the Mohawk Institute Residential School. I never knew her, but I feel like I still carry her with me. And one of the things I definitely feel is the trauma. I remember stories of her being passed down, of her escaping from the windows and scaling the walls just to get away. Instead of passing down a gift of culture and language and this beautiful tradition to her children and her grandchildren, like the Creator intended, she passed down a coat of shame. She literally had the Indian beat out of her, and that trauma trickled down through our family. The love that one gets from a parent, Christine never had, never learned how to experience, how to share it. Imagine that. As a child, never feeling love, never experiencing love. And that pattern continues through generations. My Papa's childhood was cold and hard. Because of that residential school, he didn't know his language. He didn't know his culture. He didn't know anything that I'm about to share with you here in this video. And I always saw him as kind of afraid of it. He would tell us not to use our last name on our resume because we wouldn't get the job. He would tell us not to tell people that we were Native, not to go to the reserve because it was dangerous. He cast that coat of shame down to us, his grandchildren. We were Mohawk Turtle Clan, but that was all we knew, and we didn't even know what that meant. And like a lot of families dealing with this intergenerational trauma, alcoholism, violence, depression, trauma sprinkled throughout my family. It spread like a virus you couldn't get rid of. And only when my brother and sister and I started to learn our Haudenosaunee culture did we start to recognize this dark spot that had been living inside of us. And as I started to learn about the history of my family, the history of what happened to hundreds of thousands of these Indigenous children, what happened to Christine, I started to understand those feelings of not belonging. I started to understand that pain and anger I was carrying around. And I really started to get it. And thus started my healing journey. My Papa may have never taught me the Ahodan Gariwadegwa. He didn't show me the ceremonies. He didn't show me the history of the Ganyakehaga. But one thing he did teach me was the relationship and responsibility that I had to water. As I look back now, I see residential schools. They may have cut their hair off. They may have taken their names and give them numbers, taken their language. But even through that coat of shame, my papa felt the water. It was alive to him. It was alive inside of him. And he passed that on to me. Nyawagoa, Gord. Every morning he'd wake up at dawn and he would walk this land. He dug these ponds on this land so that future generations of his family would always have access to water. He spoke at conferences in our nation's capital about how these ponds could help Indigenous communities that didn't have access to water. He dug ponds for other people in the community. Water is in our blood, and I come to these spots to see through all of that trauma that was passed down to me and heal with the water. We all have different connections with the water. Different, yet the same.
To me, the water is almost like a physical manifestation of spirit. You can see spirit flowing down beside you.
For me, whenever I'm feeling, down or lost, or I just have a question, I just go and I sit by the water and I just listen, and it all comes and it all just feels right.
I grew up on an island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and when I left, I remember dreaming about it. And I still dream about it decades later, because the water that I grew up around was also in my blood.
Water is what makes up most of your body. So it's outside of you and it's alive and well, just like your body is. So you can literally see the spirit in the water as it's flowing.
The Grand River has been an integral part of the Haudenosaunee life. The city of Brantford and surrounding areas is on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, and the Attawatam people. And the work we do, the activism, the learning, it will never be complete unless we acknowledge and remind ourselves and others that colonization is not just a thing of the past. We must acknowledge settlers have access to this land because of colonial violence. The Haldimand Treaty guaranteed the exclusive use of 950,000 acres, 6 miles along each side of the Grand River, to the Haudenosaunee people, to the members of Six Nations. To this day, through the process of colonialism, racism, genocide, settlers have secured 902,000 acres, leaving 48,000 acres for Six Nations. So we have to acknowledge the resilience of these Six Nations communities that have lived, loved, and resisted here forever. We acknowledge the resilience of this land. We acknowledge our role in decolonizing the mindset of the land we all call home now. And after all these broken treaties and stolen lands, still more than 50% of homes on Six Nations are running without running water. But who has the rights to these waters? The Haudenosaunee speak in terms of responsibility, respect to the water, not in terms of water rights. The law of the land is not of police and government, but it's a higher law. The original instructions, Ahodan Gariwadegwa. The Creator gave us this task as humans to recite the Thanksgiving address, which is a constant reminder of the early law of the land, to first give thanks. We believe that at one time all creatures, all living things could communicate, talk to each other, even the water. Today, the water's lost its ability, lost its voice, and it's the responsibility of the Haudenosaunee to uphold the voice of the water. It was passed down to us. So being the voice of the water, much different than owning it or having a right to it. What happens if we don't have enough water? What happens if we poison our water? What does our world look like? My papa may have never learned the traditional beliefs of his ancestors. He never learned the Thanksgiving address. He never went to Longhouse, and he never spoke a single Mohawk word.
He didn't really have, a connection to his culture, but without knowing it, he was like one of the most indigenous men that I knew. The knowledge that he carried, how to create these ponds, how to create clean ecosystems and habitats for all our creatures out here, how to really, really, cultivate the water and make it safe to drink. It's just so amazing to kind of watch him do these super indigenous things without really knowing who he was.
He may have been ashamed and afraid of who he was because of colonization. But it's not too late for us. It was those walks along the water's edge where I first remember truly feeling connected to the bigger picture, connected to nature, connected to life and to Mother Earth. I remember understanding at a very early age I had to take care of the water. And now I'm understanding that it's my responsibility to be the voice of the water, which is why I wanted to make this film. I wanted to share his story and other stories. I get to sing with the water, to the water, for the water. Water is life. It holds energy and it's alive. One of the other lessons I learned as I started to reclaim my culture was the two-row wampum.
My name is Susie Miller. I am a teacher at Emily C. General Elementary School at Six Nations. Our ancestors knew how to live in relationship because they lived in relationship for thousands of years. So the two-row is the first treaty that was made outside of Indigenous nations from Turtle Island. One purple row represents the ship of those that came across the water. The other row represents the canoe of our ancestors traveling the waters. What those two rows do is they travel parallel down the river of life, side by side, without interfering. In this row in the ship, thinking and way of life tends to be linear. It's always progressing. In the canoe way of understanding, it's like a circle, it's a cycle, and everything is connected. This treaty, when it was made, it's a promise, and there was no end point because they said that as long as the grasses grow and the rivers flow, this treaty will be in existence, and it still exists today. How we are to be living in relationship with each other.
Residential schools may have taken our languages. They may have taken our culture and our access to knowledge and ancestral wisdom. They may have caused trauma and pain that is still being felt today. But through all that, they could not take away my papa's connection to the water. It was inside of him all along, just like it's inside of you. Thank you for spending this time with me and my papa and the water and my family. Water is life. Yongana longwa onega. Onegawahi. Gunalongkwa.
This is for my bloodline, all my natives on the front line. Keep your money in your pipeline, cause nobody in their right mind. This is for my sisters, they were stolen and they're missing. And this is for my grandmother, and this is for your grandmother. Hit him with the water song, up G, yo. Shout accommodate like an alarm. So wake up out of juju and take up arms. Cause more is necessary than vocabulary. Whoa, it's a toxic rock import. Hitting your front door, CIA, I see it later. Your time is coming soon. I flip that shit like Pacino on a dark day afternoon. Yo, Attica, drug hatred, speaking static. Cause Logan stance is back with Layla Black like, it's getting hotter, so I need a little water. So hit him with the water song, Ukchi, yo. Let me hit my water bomb, Ukchi, yo. Hit me with the water song, Ukchi, yo.
So Sagoli, that was Blood and Water documentary by Layla Black. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post this VOD up so that anybody who missed the explanation of the survival flag can see it again at the whenever you want, because I'll put it up. Wow, whatever you want for the next 2 weeks, because that's as long as they'll let me keep it on up. But I'll put that up so that people can see that and watch it again. And if you want to share that, share it with somebody. I suppose the next 2 weeks while it's still up on the channel would be the time to do that. So the Indian Residential School Survivors Society have healing programs that they put on so that it starts that discussion on different methods and different strategies, uh, different subjects to start conversation with. And one of them they have is there's an exercise that they do that allows people to have some input into what they think are important points in relation to um, family and as a unit. So what I like to do is I have a like what is this, about 4 or 5 minutes? Let me see. Um, it's 10 minutes. So I'm going to share this exercise from the Indian Residential School Survivor Society. So this is one of the things that they will show to some of the people who come there for help. And so let me get my mug off the screen again here, and I'll show you this. And then we'll kind of look to see who we might want to go right after this. So I hope that you enjoy this here. It's just a way of us having kind of looking at different things to start that discussion.
I'm going to ask you guys, when you look at these people, imagine them as 4, 5, 6-year-old children. If they are your children, what are some of the things that you teach them as parents, or that you would hope to teach children? Language, respect, belonging, resilient, strength, compassion, love, kindness, tradition, courage, culture, humor. Humor is a huge one. Without humor, we couldn't be resilient. Independence and dependence. I'm still learning both. Responsibility, community, open-mindedness, love, trust, honesty, acceptance. How about right from wrong? How about learning from our mistakes? One of my favorites is always trust your dog's judgment and other person's character. And that is going around the hearth of the fire. The hearth of the fire is the center or the heart of the community. It is closest to the fire because that's where it's kept safe. That's where it builds. That's where it grows. Around that, we have our children. I'll have you here. One can go there, and one right here. And we keep them there because that's where we want our children to be safe. Who carries these children for 9 months? Mothers. I think we have 4 volunteers for moms. They'll stand directly behind each of the children. What do mothers provide to these children aside from everything else we just said? Protection, safety, moral guidance, comfort. And the biggest one is showing these children love, teaching them that it's okay to cry, teaching them what a warm embrace feels like. They carry the child for 9 months in their womb, loving, nurturing, feeding. It is a love no one will understand until they get there. These moms learn a lot of those values from where? Mothers, as well as grandparents. You know, the grandfathers play a huge role. Where's my grandparents? Just the grandparents. All of that wisdom is encapsulated in the knowledge of these grandparents. In a traditional sense, these children were being raised by their grandparents. That knowledge was being passed down at a communal level. They taught the children how to love, to nurture, an unconditional way of being in life. That's that strength in an Indigenous community. And I'm pretty confident that's the same for many households out here. They live communally, especially now since housing's so expensive, right? They have a huge role in this. We have one more faction here, and it's the fathers. Let's just do a circle around this circle. What's the father's role in all this? Protection, love, support, providing, teaching, respect, active listening, playing. You can see just by this how intricate each level is in a family situation. Fathers are a huge role in this. Without them, what's the center going to look like? I have one more volunteer right here. She represents colonialism. Everything within this circle is not good enough for her. She's going to fix it. She knows what's best. And she's not going to ask anybody for their opinion on if it's going to work. And she's going to come right into the center and take the entire center out, follow her to the side, way over in the corner, and take it away. What's your guys' role now? Who are you protecting and teaching?
No one.
Who are you loving?
No one.
Did anyone ask you if they could take your child?
No.
What's the elder's role here?
I don't have one anymore.
Who are you passing your traditions and culture down?
I don't know anymore.
Fathers, the outer strength of the circle. What's your role now?
I don't know.
How does it make you feel?
Not very good.
What do you think happens when you feel empty inside? What do you turn to?
I'm not sure.
Are you valued anymore?
No.
Does your opinion count?
No.
How do you protect your family when there's nothing left to protect?
I don't know.
This, in a very brief exercise, demonstrates how colonialism impacts generation after generation. When you take away the center, there is no more foundation. There is no more loving. You have taken children way off to the corner here. You're teaching them English because their language is demonized. Who's loving these children? Who's protecting these children? Are they getting the education they need? The love, the support, the skills? Imagine a community with no more children running around in it. What does that silence do to it? What does it do to the parents? People of trauma try to numb the pain. How do you numb pain? Any ideas? Alcohol, drugs, suicide, violence. You then have the colonizer coming in and saying, you may not have any more children, but now you're going to have to remain on this small piece of land. We're going to label it reserves. You cannot leave the reserves without my permission. If you speak your language or don't give up your children, you're going to that other corner. That other corner is jail. You really have no choice in the matter. You can't go doing your traditional hunting and fishing anymore because it's off the boundaries of the reserve. It's all about perception. How do you kill the Indian and the child? By ripping it out of the heart of the community. So what's our goal? As future educators, what is our goal? Because this just does not impact us as Indigenous people. What is your role going to be? What I'd like you to do is check yourself. What are my perceptions? What are my beliefs? Are those beliefs mine? Where did they come from? Do I have room to change? And how am I going to present this history, not just to your students, but to your friends and family? I'm calling each and every one of you out to be a witness here today. It is your job to retell the truth. You may not believe the truth, but it's our truth, my parents' truth, my grandparents' truth, as well as yours. It's about breaking down stereotypes, understanding why they were built up, why are we afraid of them, and bringing back the center of our circle, building up our community, making sure our children are strong. Doesn't matter their gender, race, making sure they are the future leaders of this country. So we don't even have to go back to this. Thank you to the volunteers.
Sigoli, Swagwag, Galahindi Neil gets again. I hope that kind of gives you a little bit to ponder, I guess, if you will, because of the history of these residential schools and the system that was set up that was essentially created to assimilate our children into the Western society. First of all, it failed. Um, and part of the reason it failed is that we had elders and knowledge keepers who were willing to maintain and teach um, future generations despite the laws and the rules that were set aside in what we call the Indian Act, which I don't know if anybody remembers, but we went over this some time ago. The Indian Act was a document that essentially told us where our place was on Turtle Island, and the rules that we had to abide by, uh, regardless of our teachings and our tradition and our ceremony. And you can download this documentary or this document um, from the government website and get a rendition and see exactly all the different intricate rules that are still exist today, despite the fact that we're not really um, told necessarily about all of the rules. Um, they exist and they're here, so that the colonial government essentially has the guidelines on what we can teach, uh, what roles we can take on in society, etc. Which, even though they may not necessarily be um, adhered to or enforced, they're there should they ever want to be. And that's the reason why many people feel like the Indian Act needs to be abolished. The problem with that, of course, is that it also includes things about what the colonizers need to provide to indigenous peoples, which, if we just abolished the Indian Act completely as is, um, would leave a little bit of a um, chaotic environment, to say the least. So it can't just be abolished without anything to replace it, and that's what needs to be done before we can go down that road. So, to kind of recap what we've done today, for those of you who came late, is we started out today's stream with an explanation of the survivor's flag. The survivor's flag, you will see, is that uh, essentially the icon that you see that I use for my profile, the little circle under the stream, that's got the family and the cedar branch and the pine tree, tree of peace, and the representation. We broke that down. So if you missed it and you want it, if you're interested in knowing exactly what all of those parts of that um, design mean, you can just rewatch it. It's right at the very beginning of today's stream, as we broke down all 9 parts of that, the survivor's flag. After the survivor's flag, we heard a short talk by a radio host, Rosanna Deerchild, discussing reclaiming her narrative as she deals with uh, systemic racism that still exists even today. We had actually a pretty inspirational talk by Tom Jackson, uh, who talked about Canada as a family. And then, of course, we wrapped it up with the documentary by Mohawk filmmaker Layla Black, who was on this stream last summer discussing activism and having this really, really well done um, documentary with beautiful cinematography. So definitely worth a rewatch if you missed any of it. Certainly rewatch the VOD even just for that. That was a great documentary. And then, of course, then we had the question exercise from the Indian Residential School Survivors Society. So for the month of September, also, keep in mind again, I've registered for the National Truth and Reconciliation Conference, which will be the week of September 25th to the 30th. So, whatever I can share from that, I will. And so that'll be because September 30th is National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, for those of you who are not familiar. And Yelko Scissorman for the resub now, 7 months. Um, it's great to see how many people are coming back and continually showing their support every month, and I appreciate that so much. So thank you again for resubbing 7 months now. So I'm going to post this. It'll be up on the VODs probably within about 5 minutes after the end of the stream. So if there's any part of that that you missed and you want to rewatch, definitely feel free to do so. Oh, Scissorman. Wow. Yeah, go. So much for that. Um, Thank you. Thank you so much. 5 gifted subs, and there's some nice people that got some subs there. Java Joust, I know from Num the Geek stream, uh, great, and Sky Sark is I think new to our channel just recently, and so great to see them uh, get a gift. So. What I'm going to do here is we'll go over and see one of our friends here. So we'll raid out. I want to also say Yanko to Dawn Diarc. She's now resubbed for 3 months. And for those of you who are able to, you'll notice for the month of September, I got the fundraiser link up for the uh, Indian Residential School Survivor Society. So you'll see that where you normally see the the sub link, it'll say donate to a charity. So you can also have the option of doing that as well if anybody's so inclined and has the means. Certainly, any help that you can provide, they would be truly grateful for, I'm sure. And so I'm going to keep that up for the month of September to ensure that if we can help them out because they do sharing circles, they do healing programs for resident school survivors as well as their families, and also for the families of those who did not survive because they also have some trauma that they have to deal with because of that void that now exists from the loss of a family member or family members in some cases. So if you can consider that, certainly feel free to consider it. I appreciate that. And so September 25th to the 30th will be the week. I also, tomorrow will be our music stream. So I'll probably start that tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, and we'll just go until we can, until we can't go anymore. As every week we have that. Normally it's on Tuesdays, but this week I'm working tonight, so I have to push it off until tomorrow, and then we'll kind of go from there. But I see that a friend of ours is streaming that I'd like to go over, and that's Andrea Cannon Guitar. She's very talented and an amazing friend of ours as well. And I hope that you'll all copy a raid call here. So actually, let me put those in now. And and I hope that you will stick around and come over and show some love to Andrea as we go over and see her. Oh, and thank you, Don. Uh, so Knuckles is you're stuck with us for at least another month. Again, I appreciate that support. Thank you so much. Or Yanko, as we say. Um, so let's go over and see Andrea. And again, I hope you will all copy that rate call. Once you copy a rate call, just refresh your screen so that you're counted properly. And when we go over there and share some love to Andrea Cannon Guitar. And she's again very talented. Make some requests, and I'm sure that she'll be more than happy to. She does a great rendition of actually a Metallica on acoustic guitar. I haven't heard anyone do that before, but it's on acoustic guitar. But she does a really great job, and she did it because Fantastic Kitty and I kind of edged her on a little bit to learn that song. So let's go and see Andrea. And again, thank you everyone for being here. And if you missed any of the VOD, We'll get that posted within about 5 minutes after we get into Andrea's uh, stream, and then so if you ever want to watch back for the next couple weeks, that VOD will be up. And let's go over and see Andrea.
I guess I don't have a mod here right now, so I'm doing my own song list. Dark Native!